Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. Thank you for listening. 866-907-3339. Gary and Eric, they will return next Sunday night, Monday morning. Always appreciate the opportunity to guest host for the guys. All right, there is a lot going on, and I just want to launch right into it. By the way, follow me on X if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. Also on Facebook, at Dan Mandis Show. Donald Trump on Tuesday visited Alligator Alcatraz, and he was asked about his relationship. First of all, it was a great tour, and Trump was clearly very excited. But one of the things that I thought was interesting is the president was asked about his relationship with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
How would you describe the relationship, and what future does Governor DeSantis have?
I think it's a 10. Maybe 9-9, because there might be a couple of little wounds. So maybe it's not 9. I think we have a 10. We get along good.
So, I mean, I heard that, and I'm going to be honest with you. I was and am a big Ron DeSantis fan, but that's quite the change. How do you feel about your relationship with Ron DeSantis? Oh, it's a 10. Really? Because I'm old enough to remember this.
Ron DeSanctimonious. So I call him Ron DeSanctimonious. Ron DeSanctimonious.
Remember all that? Ron DeSanctimonious and the whole conversation about DeSantis wearing lifts in his shoes. Remember all of that. Remember, be likable, Ron, be likable, right? I mean, listen, it is stunning that now DeSantis, I believe now that he has been welcomed back into the MAGA universe with open arms. And so for the president to talk about DeSantis in glowing terms, I thought was pretty stunning. But here's the thing, is that all's fair in politics, right? Now, those days where Trump was calling Ron DeSanctimonious, long gone, as Trump and the Florida governor now seem to be getting along clearly, as you just heard, swimmingly. One of the things that was asked of Donald Trump, not only about how you feel about him, but also the evolving friendship over the last several years. This is what I almost called him DeSanctimonious. This is what DeSantis had to say about that.
You know, the thing about it is, I endorsed him immediately in January 2024. I raised one of his PACs millions and millions of dollars, and obviously we saved him a lot of money in Florida because Florida was a deep red state. He didn't even have to do a rally in Florida, whereas 2016 and 20, this was like ground zero. And so we've been really happy to do that, and then we've worked very well on this and other issues with Florida. You can call him at any time, and he wants to be helpful for governors. I mean, I can tell you that. We did Hurricane Helene last year. You didn't hear from the president at the time then. But with President Trump, we know immediately, you just make the phone call.
Yeah, and here's the thing. When you look at Joe Biden, there's no other way to say it. When you look at Joe Biden and the fact that, one could say that Joe Biden was in hiding, especially during the last couple of years of his administration, you could say that, sure, or you could say that he was being hidden. They were hiding Joe Biden because they knew that his mind was, unfortunately, and unfortunately for America, unfortunately for Joe Biden, but his mind was, he just was not the man that he used to be. And cognitively speaking, Joe Biden was in decline. And that's why he was in hiding, or he was being hidden. But Donald Trump has definitely noticed this relationship, this ever-evolving relationship with Ron DeSantis. He spoke about it during the press conference. Listen.
It's been just a beautiful, beautiful partnership. So, Ron, I'd like to thank you personally. You're my friend, and you'll always be my friend. And we may have some skirmishes even in the future. I doubt it. But I will always come back because we just we have blood that seems to match pretty well. We have We have a relationship that's been a very strong one for a long period of time, and I appreciate it, very much appreciate it.
Well, here's what I'll say, is that with Donald Trump, you never quite know what's going to happen. There was a time, I think I actually said this on my local morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, where when Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they were getting along swimmingly. They were the best of friends. But then, as we talked about last night, clearly that relationship has gone south. So with Trump, you never quite know what's going to happen. And you heard the president say that there might be some skirmishes between he and Ron DeSantis. Well, one of the things that has happened is Donald Trump endorsed Byron Donalds as Florida's next governor, as opposed to Governor DeSantis' wife, Casey DeSantis, who was considering a run. So I think that's part of the dynamic here. But also don't forget about 2028. Because I will tell you that I believe that Ron DeSantis could be a very, very good president of the United States. He's a great presidential candidate. Now, when you look at the competition, when you look at J.D. Vance, when you look at Marco Rubio, how does Ron DeSantis stack up against those two? I think he would make a very good third candidate, in my opinion, Ron DeSantis. He could be right up there with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio as names Republicans will consider in the primary. But ultimately, I think that it's going to come down to either J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. But when Trump is on his way out and he is thinking about who to endorse, when Trump says, well, you know, we might have some skirmishes, that might be one of those skirmishes. I mean, we'll have to see what happens, but I don't see the relationship between Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. I don't see that relationship cratering like the relationship between Donald Trump and Mike Pence, for example. But, you know, that stuff really wasn't discussed at all today at Alligator Alcatraz, you know, future presidential aspirations of Ron DeSantis. It was all about Donald Trump, and it was all about Ron DeSantis helping Trump deal with all of these illegal, alien, violent criminals and how they can get them out of here quickly.
We're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two. Yep. So they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, you know, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended. But you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done.
So if you missed that, this is part of the news cycle this morning. So what they're going to do is they're going to use the Florida National Guardsmen as immigration judges. DeSantis asked for approval, and Trump has said, okay. So these are qualified people. They're known as JAGs, right? You've heard of JAGs, the Judge Advocate Generals, and they've been around for years. DeSantis was one himself, as a matter of fact. So what they are is they're military lawyers. So this was a great idea. You can, I guess, deputize them or whatever, but they can use these JAGs, and they're going to basically either live or stay on this base here at the Alligator Amazon, or I should say the Alligator, Alcatraz, the Alligator Alcatraz. And what they're going to do is they're just going to churn these guys out. That's what they're going to do. And that does make all the sense in the world. What this will do is it is going to fast track the process. They're calling it a one-stop shop for immigration enforcement. The reporter said that there is air conditioning, by the way. We talked about this last night. There is air conditioning. There is obviously bathroom facilities. And honestly, from what I've seen, it actually looks pretty amazing and far better than where some of these guys, frankly, should be, which is maximum security prisons. So CNN, of course, as you can imagine, they came up in the press conference. Kristi Noem was talking about the media coverage as it relates to this facility.
By thanking our ICE officers and our Border Patrol officers for what they do every day. They are out on the streets, and violence against them has increased over 500% since Trump has gone back into the White House, because he's upholding the law and because a bunch of liberals, socialists, and Marxists are out there lying about what President Trump is doing. President Trump is upholding freedom by what he is doing. The freedom to live safely in this country and to do things legally and to have justice. And because those liberals, and I'm calling out you, CNN, I'm calling you out because you lie every single day about what these operations are. We are going after murderers and rapists and traffickers and drug dealers and getting them off the streets and getting them out of this country because Joe Biden let the worst of the worst come in here.
You know, it's funny. I was watching some audio clips earlier, and maybe I'll get into this a little bit later on in the program as it continues to unfold. But there are these senators and representatives, and they're Democrats, and they're being asked about Donald Trump and how well he's done on the southern border. And it's almost like they refuse to acknowledge how well the president has done on the border. I mean, obviously, he has reversed everything that Joe Biden either did or didn't do. And you have some of these folks that'll say, well, he's breaking the law. Donald Trump is breaking the law. But number one, they don't really get into what law he is accused of breaking. That's number one. But number two, I don't believe that he is. And most people don't. But they use that sort of as an answer so that they don't have to acknowledge the fact that he has stopped all of this illegal immigration that was coming across our southern border. But they don't want to talk about that. And you know why they don't want to talk about that, right? Whether we're talking about CNN or whether we're talking about the Democrats, the reason why they don't want to talk about that is because, and she was right, talking about CNN and their incredibly biased coverage. The reason they don't want to talk about that is because to talk about that, to speak about how well Donald Trump has done to seal off that border and stop all of this illegal immigration. The reason why this is so huge and the reason why they don't want to talk about it is because they were complicit in 15 to 20 million illegal aliens coming across our southern border. They were complicit. They continued to say that the border was secure and the media would not fact check them on that. Of course, talk show hosts did. Of course, Fox News did. But the mainstream media, the networks, the CNNs and the MSNBCs of the world, they flat out lied. But it was more than that. It was also gaslighting. I mean, you wonder why. You wonder why nobody trusts the media anymore. Donald Trump. Well, actually, you know what? Here's the funny thing. I was going to say Donald Trump exposed the media, but you know who actually exposed the media? It was Joe Biden, too. Joe Biden was right up there. And all of the liars that were telling us that the border was secure, when we knew that it wasn't, and we saw the videos and we heard what Bill Melugin on Fox News was reporting, we knew the border wasn't secure. And so when the media refused to fact check the president of the United States, and it made them look bad, they destroyed their own credibility. It was Joe Biden's administration that assisted in the decline of the media and their loss of credibility, their absolute loss of credibility. It was that, and it was also on, obviously, the decline of Joe Biden's cognitive abilities, where all of us talk show hosts, I'm sure Gary and Eric were talking about this as well, where it's like, look at the man. He can't even find his way off of a stage. He's trying to shake hands with ghosts. He's calling out for dead congresswomen. What is wrong with him? Oh, he's sharp as a tack. Is he sharp as a tack? Really? And the media went right along with it. So, yeah, Kristi Noem, she is spot on in her assessments of what was going on and what continues to go on with the mainstream media. So Donald Trump taking that tour of Alligator Alcatraz, and the facility itself, I mean, it does look amazing. And when you compare it actually to where they have stayed in the past, I get that they're surrounded by snakes and alligators and all of that. And that basically saves money because nobody in their right mind is going to try to escape and walk through the swamplands of the Florida Everglades. That is just not going to happen. Got a lot more straight ahead. By the way, the phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis. In for Gary and Eric, this is Red Eye Radio.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. On a hot summer day, the last thing you want to feel is a blast of warm air when you turn on your air conditioning. A malfunctioning AC system will leave you uncomfortably shifting in your seat. Not to mention, it can affect the safety and performance of your entire vehicle and your productivity. Keep your AC system running smooth and your deliveries on schedule this summer with the following maintenance tip. Replace your cabin filters at least once a year, as dirty cabin filters are possibly the most common cause of AC system malfunction, or worse, failure. Replace your cabin filters more frequently if you operate in a dirty or humid environment.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Follow me on X, if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. Just to remind you why it is so incredibly important that we keep our border secure. By the way, coming up after the bottom of the hour, Harry Enton is going to talk about Donald Trump's popularity within the Republican Party. That is coming up at right after the bottom of the hour. And Harry, of course, I'm a big fan of his, believe it or not. I know that he's on CNN, right? But I think he is the one shining star on CNN. He and, of course, Scott Jennings. So that's coming up. But just to remind you about how important it is to keep our border secure, have you heard what is going on just across the U.S. border near El Paso on the Mexico side? Have you heard what's going on? They have found 400 bodies just across the U.S. border, again, near El Paso. They are stacked in what is being described as a nondescript building, like a secret crematorium. It looks more like a home than a crematorium. But some of these bodies have been there for years, and some of them had been embalmed. And so now they're trying to figure out, because the cartels are huge in this part of the world, again, right across our border in Mexico. And so you have a couple of things going on. You do have the situation with the cartels on a day where they found 400 bodies stacked up sky high from in this nondescript building that looked like a home. Some of these bodies had been embalmed and been there for years, and so they're trying to figure out, is this something the cartels have done? So that's number one. Number two, you also have in the news today in Mexico, you have, and this is, it feels like it's just another day in the life of people that live in Mexico, but there's a story where you have these bodies that are hanging from traffic lights. Have you seen that story? Yeah. That's, again, the cartels. And so these are areas known for their cartel violence, and it is obviously horrific. But you know what? Bottom line is, this is why it is so important that we continue to guard our southern border. By the way, they're trying to figure out the remains of all these folks. They're being checked. They're in that would-be crematorium. They're trying to figure out who these people are, the 400 bodies, to ensure the bodies are not victims of murder. They're trying to figure out who to charge and what in the world happened just across our southern border near El Paso.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
Phone number remains 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. There is no doubt, and we spoke about this a little bit last night, where Donald Trump has just been doing really well. I mean, the left, their hair is on fire. They're always screaming. They're always complaining. But you know what? That's what they do, and they do it really well. And by the way, in case you don't know, the big, beautiful bill, it has now indeed passed the Senate. We'll get into the details on that coming up. But it has passed the Senate, and I saw, actually, with a big, beautiful bill, that the House of Representatives, they may actually vote on that tomorrow. So we'll have to see and I'm putting this in air quotes because people always fight me on who's really a conservative, right? So, but there is a wing of conservative Republicans in the House of Representatives who, at least some media outlets are reporting, are going to try to stand in the way of the big, beautiful bill passing the House of Representatives. We'll talk about that coming up. But Trump has been doing really well. And if you've never heard me before, well, I fill in on Red Eye a lot. I have a local morning show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN in Nashville, Tennessee. Reason I tell you that is because I'm not somebody who just automatically sides with Donald Trump all the time. People who have listened to me know that. Now, there's plenty of things that I disagree with Donald Trump on. So just know I'm not out here, spewing what some would call propaganda. And I've been accused of simply being a propagandist for Donald Trump. No, actually, there's a lot of things that I disagree with him on. But you can't deny that he's on a roll. I mean, he's on a roll just racking up the wins has been incredible. I mean, there was an announcement earlier today from the president that he has negotiated a ceasefire or helped to negotiate a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. So we'll talk about that at some point during the show. But Harry Enton, I like Harry Enton. He is the statistical guy over there on CNN. And he wanted to do a poll. How popular is Donald Trump with GOP voters specifically? Because you're going to see these the polling out there that will show that Donald Trump, he's not very popular and his approval ratings are down and all these. Okay, that's all fine. But how is he doing with GOP voters specifically? Harry Enton says that Donald Trump is hitting it out of the park.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to look at the strongly approved numbers. So this isn't just Republicans who like Donald Trump. This is Republicans who love Donald Trump, and he's up like a rocket. Look at this. In July 2017, the strongly approved was 53%. That's pretty good. But look at where he is now. 63% of Republicans strongly approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing about 5 months into his presidency. Republicans love Donald Trump the way that Americans love Disney World.
Now, here's what I do. I play audio, then I comment. So in July 2017, Donald Trump's approval rating was, I'm going to say, only 53%. 5 months into his first administration. Now, second administration, he is at 63%. That is up 10 percentage points. But why, you may ask? I've got some opinions on that. So I want you to think about where America was July of 2017 as far as the media goes. And I'm not going to bang on the media all night, but there was an all-out war on Donald Trump. We're coming out of Barack Obama, and everybody loved Barack Obama. Here comes Donald Trump, and the media is accusing him of being, basically a Russian spy. He and Vladimir Putin, they're best buddies. Vladimir Putin helped him get into the White House. He is a Putin puppet. He colluded with Russia. All of the things that they said about Donald Trump. Day one of his presidency, do you remember this? Day one of Donald Trump's presidency, the media came out and they said, well, he took the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. down off of his office. You can't find it anywhere. He took the bust of Martin Luther King Jr. down. How dare he? What a racist. Turned out not to be true. So what's the big difference between July 2017 and July of 2025? I'm going to tell you. Number one, I think that more people are hip to the fact that the media, they lie about Donald Trump, and they have been for years. That's number one. Number two, we just went through 4 years of Joe flippin' Biden. We know how bad this America can go under the wrong leadership. And so part of the reason why Donald Trump, I believe, has that 63% approval rating right now is because, number one, he is racking up the wins. But number two, we just came out of 4 years of Joe Biden. And Biden was horrible and getting worse by the time he left office. So I think there's a number of things going on.
Bottom line is 63%. That is a huge, huge base. And of course, it's just part of a Republican base in which about 90% of them overall approve of him, including the somewhat approves as well.
I mean, every politician would like this number here, especially to see it go up. How about compared to other presidents who were Republicans?
Yeah, it's history making. It's history making. What are we talking about here? So why don't we look back? We have all the presidents, Republican presidents, going back over the last 35, 36, 37 years. What are we talking about? GOP, who strongly approved 5 months in. Look at this. George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, 46%. Bush 43, 59. You see Trump, the first term, 53. But look at this. 63%. He beats all the other Republicans on the board here. And I was looking even back since Reagan. And get this, Donald Trump beats Ronald Reagan when it comes to the strongly approved 5 months. And of course, Reagan was coming off that high after that assassination attempt. So the bottom line is Donald Trump is making history with the Republican base. He is more beloved by this Republican base than any Republican base loved any GOP president 5 months in. It is history making.
Now, you know what's interesting, too, is Bush 43, in 2001, he's at 59%. And part of what's amazing here is, and I spoke a little bit about this the other day, but one of the things that I've noticed is there is this really snooty attitude amongst some Republicans where they look at Donald Trump and they're irrelevant at this point. But they look at Donald Trump and they look at Trump supporters and they look down at them. Have you noticed that? Where it's like if you see, Bush 43, you see him sometimes in interviews or how they react to Donald Trump when everybody's on the world stage. Like, for example, when Jimmy Carter passed away and that funeral, you had Trump. He was actually, yucking it up with Barack Obama, of all people. But George Bush had nothing to say. And so I do find that interesting that Trump is doing so well and he is so beloved, but there's a lot of people within the Republican Party that just kind of look down on him. You know what I mean? They think that he is somehow lesser than, even though the man is on he even beat Reagan. He even beat Reagan. So that is huge for Donald Trump. And by the way, CNN, they had to hate this report.
A striking number. Tillis stepping aside after President Trump threatened to primary him. The question is, how effective is Trump's endorsement? We know it can hurt, but how effective is it?
Yeah, okay. So, the bottom line is, if you're a Republican lawmaker, you see this 63%, you say, my goodness gracious, you do not want to go against Donald Trump because the Republican base is with Donald Trump. And it's not just the polling. We actually have the data to show that the Republican base is with Donald Trump. The times Trump endorsees won the GOP primary for governor and congressional races. Look at this. 2024, 96%. 2022, 95%. 2020, 98%. The bottom line is this. 95% plus of the time, the Trump endorsed candidate wins in GOP primaries. And even in the cases where Donald Trump endorses a challenger to an incumbent, the majority of the time, that challenger wins. So Donald Trump is a winner in Republican primaries. You go against Donald Trump, to quote the movie Good Burger, you go in the grinder. Donald Trump is the key nugget. His endorsement is the key nugget in a GOP primary because he's historically strongly popular with the GOP base.
Yeah, so you had Tom Tillis, of course, that Trump announced that he was going to try to find a challenger for Tom Tillis, and he just decided that he was going to go ahead and retire. And I think that's why. Because he's probably seen these numbers. He knows what it means if you go up against Donald Trump. Now, listen, there's some people that would see that. And by the way, just those numbers again, times Trump endorses wins GOP primary. So Donald Trump, if you get his endorsement, then more than likely you are going to win that GOP primary. In 2020, 98%, 2022, 95%, and 2024, what is that? That is 6%. Yeah, 96% in 2024. And I'd be willing to bet that in the midterm election coming up, because of the fact that the president has done so well, I think that it's going to be even higher. And Tom Tillis realized that. And so he just decided, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to retire. And it's not real surprising. And so the Republicans in the House of Representatives, they know that they are under an incredible amount of pressure to get the big, beautiful bill passed. Because part of the problem that they're going to have, of course, is that they're going to be in a situation where the Senate, they have changed what the House did. The bill, as you know, it goes from the House into the Senate. The Senate changes, and then it goes back to the House of Representatives. And then eventually they've got to go into a committee, and everybody's got to agree on that one big, beautiful bill. And Donald Trump, you know what? Love him or hate him, man, he's got the testicular fortitude to try to get this pushed through. And make no mistake, the Donald Trump from the first 5 months of his first administration is a far cry from the Donald Trump of today. The Donald Trump of today, he's surrounded himself with people who are like-minded. I believe that Donald Trump was saddled with people that he didn't necessarily want to work with in the first term. He just didn't want to work with them. People who were, I don't know what you'd call them, but people that the Republican Party wanted him to work in his administration, hire into his administration, almost like to keep an eye on him. Well, this time, you know, he went in with a plan. He knew who he wanted to work for. He didn't have to listen to, you know, the GOP, if you will, like he had to in the first term, where he was stuck working with people he didn't want to work with, but he had to appease the party, the GOP. This time, he is the Republican Party. And for Harry Enten, you know, I think that when he does these polls and when he does this polling, he is spot on. And that's why I think that people who are so anti-Trump within the Republican movement, within the Republican Party, I think that they're irrelevant. And I think the media is irrelevant. And part of what's going on, I mean, the news cycle today, just today, you've got Alligator Alcatraz. You've got that visit. You've got the 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. Let me talk about that real quick. So this is what Donald Trump posted on his Truth Social. He says, my representatives had a long and productive meeting with the Israelis today on Gaza. Israel, he says, has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize the 60-day ceasefire, during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. The Qataris and the Egyptians, who have worked very hard to help bring peace, will deliver this final proposal. He goes on to say, I hope for the good of the Middle East that Hamas takes this deal, because it will not get better. It will only get worse. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, Donald Trump is supposed to be meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's going to be next week. Surely the discussion will center not only on Iran, but also on Gaza. But this is huge, because this has gone on for far too long. Now, remember, on the back of all of this, Trump has floated the idea also of commercializing Gaza, making it into some sort of a, you know, big resort style place, who I'm assuming with casinos and, you know, fancy beaches and the whole thing. That will no doubt work its way into the conversation as well from people on the left, who they're always looking for an angle to make it negative on Donald Trump. And so no doubt they'll say, well, he's got some sort of ulterior motive. He wants to turn the Gaza Strip into, you know, a bunch of casinos named Trump, right? You know that's going to happen. Anyway, the phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE. Phone lines are open, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. 866-90 Red Eye is the phone number. 866-907-3339. Follow me on X if you would, at Dan Mandis Show. You can also find me on Facebook at the same handle, at Dan Mandis Show. Just to tell you where we are going this morning, there is a lot going on. Donald Trump's administration versus CNN over the anti-ICE app. We'll talk about that. And also, President Trump has come to a settlement with CBS regarding that interview that they edited with Kamala Harris. Details straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number. Appreciate you listening. 866-907-3339. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And you can listen to that if you want, 6 to 10 Eastern. And that is 5 to 9 Central. And you can listen via iHeartRadio, the TuneIn app, also the WTN app as well. And we are also on YouTube and Facebook as well. There is a lot going on with the big, beautiful bill, which, by the way, has now passed out of the Senate. Now, that is clearly big news for President Trump. He wants this done before Friday, before the 4th of July, I should say. So we'll have to see what happens in the House of Representatives. I think that there is a lot good in this bill. If you've been listening the last couple of days, you know that I have some reservations regarding the amount of money that is going to be spent on this. But, you know, the bottom line is this is something that the president wanted, and this is something that for a lot of Americans, they are looking forward to the tax cuts being extended and also increased. So this was one of those situations for the American people and for Donald Trump. I think a lot of people have been watching this with a lot of anticipation. And then finally, of course, it happened.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the vice president votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
Yeah, that is Vice President J.D. Vance. It had passed. It was close. 3 holdouts with the Republicans. It was Rand Paul, Susan Collins of Maine, Tom Tillis of North Carolina as well. All voted no. And because of that, it was a tie. So then J.D. Vance had to come in and be the tiebreaker. This was obviously a massive undertaking. The vote-a-rama, we know, we spoke about that last night. It took hours and hours and hours. The Democrats mandating that this whole bill, about 1,000 pages, be read out loud in the Senate. That also delayed this. But at the end of the day, it was passed out of the Senate. House Speaker Mike Johnson appeared on with Sean Hannity.
85 to 90% of this bill is the House-generated product. The Senate made some modifications to it. They made it more conservative in some places and moderated it a little bit in others. But I tell you what, as the president said so well today, this is no longer just a House bill. It's not a Senate bill. It's the bill of the people. Yeah, and the president, of course, very excited about all of this. And we've spoken about what's in it. The most important thing for many people is the tax cuts. It does make permanent those lower tax rates we've all been enjoying since 2018, a higher standard tax deduction for everyone, no tax on tips, auto loan interest deductions for cars made in America, no taxes on overtime, the child tax credit that is going to be going up from $2,000 to $2,200 per child, business tax breaks as well to encourage investing and hiring. And so now the big question is, and by the way, I do understand I am only touching the surface. Hey, whenever I talk about the big, beautiful bill, the spending bill, whatever it is that you want to call it, there's always something that I leave out because, folks, it is like 1,000 pages. The question is, will this pass? I'm confident we can. We're at the 1 yard line in this game that's been played over a year. Really, we worked on this for about 14 months to get us to this point. We're going to run it right up the middle and score for the American people. And I tell you what, everybody is going to benefit. And as you noted, all those features. It's the most conservative piece of legislation we've ever worked on. You need to mention at the same time that even though while we're having historic tax cuts, we also have historic savings. We're going to save $1.6 trillion for the American people. We're going to cut down the size and scope of government, make it more efficient, make it work better for the people. They demand and deserve that.
So the Republicans are saying that, and I've complained about this ad nauseum, but the Republicans say that they are cutting spending while the Democrats say it will increase spending. And it always just depends on your perspective, how you're crunching the numbers, et cetera. There's a lot of political games and messaging going on, but the bottom line is clearly we will be getting more opportunity to save money or spend more of our money as opposed to the government spending it on stupid stuff. The speaker also says that they're not done with all of this. It will continue to be adjusted.
You can do a reconciliation budget for each fiscal year. So the plan is to do one in the fall for the FY26 budget year. And then we can also squeeze in a third one for FY27 before this Congress is up. At the same time, we're going to be passing rescissions packages from the White House to save more money and spending less in appropriations. We will get the government back to fiscal sanity, and we are the party to do it.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the criticisms are out there from the left. You've got them screaming that this is going to gut Medicaid. Now, I don't believe this is true. Most Republicans believe that this is not true. Speaker Johnson says this is not true, but there's other people that say that it is true. One of the things that Johnson says is they will continue to defend this legislation.
We need to make sure the program is sustained for the people it's intended for. That's, you know, the elderly, the disabled, young pregnant mothers down on the luck, for example. So that's what we do by reinstituting work requirements, right? If you're a young, able-bodied man, you should be helping to pull the wagon, not riding it. And so we have this very popular provision that says if you're going to receive Medicaid, you got to show that you're working or at least looking for a job, or volunteering in your community. Sean, for 20 hours a week. It should be much more, but that is a minimal requirement that will reduce a lot of the abuse of the program and shore it up for the people that need it the most. We're very proud of that.
I mean, that's the thing. When you hear the left say, oh, they're kicking people off Medicaid. Okay, well, number one, who are they kicking off? Are they illegal aliens? Are they people that are able-bodied and should be working? Who are they? And I love this whole hysteria over the work requirements. They're asking for 20 hours a week. Or, by the way, if you don't want to go out and work, you can somehow serve the community. Now, I don't exactly know what that means, but if you want the taxpayers to help you out, then you need to get up off your tail. And if you don't want to work, then go pick up trash off the side of the highway or volunteer at the local community-run animal rescue or whatever. I mean, I love that. And I don't believe that that is unreasonable. That's not unreasonable at all. Pull your weight. Make a contribution. Do something with your life. I've always said this. Forcing someone who is on Medicaid to go out and work 20 hours or somehow try to serve the community, that can lead to a sense of purpose for someone who is just living off the taxpayers. And you go to work and you're forced to go, I don't know, work someplace, and you might end up with a new lease on life. In my opinion, you're doing these people a favor and you're doing the taxpayers a favor as well. By the way, also, let's not forget that Trump's immigration agenda is also wrapped up in this bill.
We're estimating the average American will have an additional $10,000 take-home pay because of this. You will have no taxes on your tips and on your overtime. Seniors will get a reduction in taxes because of a credit they'll have, those on Social Security. There's something in this bill, literally, as the president said today, for everyone. It is great policy and is going to help the economy, help the American people, and fulfill the promises of the America First agenda.
Yeah, and obviously this is something that is incredibly important. By the way, I don't know if you saw this, but right when it was passing out of the Senate, Chuck Schumer, petulant child that he is, actually had the name Big Beautiful Bill taken out of the legislation.
I raise a point of order against page 1, lines 3 to 5 of the pending amendment, which violates Section 313B1A of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974.
The point of order is sustained. The text will be stricken.
So, I mean, congratulations, Chuck. Boy, that is a really big accomplishment for you, but just unbelievable. I thought that was, again, rather petulant. But, you know, this is the Democrat Party. This is where they are. And for Chuck Schumer, if he wants to come away with a win, if that's his version of a win, okay. We'll go ahead and we'll see where this goes in the House of Representatives. By the way, as I was speaking before, you do have a certain contingent of folks within the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. They are determined, it would appear, they are determined to make changes to the Senate version of this bill. So it's not over. It's not over by a long shot. The Republicans say that they want to go ahead in the House and take a vote on this tomorrow. We'll see if they can. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. That is where we find Max in St. Louis, Missouri on Red Eye Radio. Max, thanks for calling in.
Hey, how are you doing? Hey,
I'm all right.
I just want to say I want to try to stay on track here. I appreciate you giving me this time. Let me say this. I'm an immigrant, and America, if there wasn't an America, there would not be a sane world. But having said that, I did express to your screener, I was going to say this. You and I go to work not for money. We go to work for results. We deliver results. The 63% that you were talking about that President Trump has does not surprise me. He is focused on results. And that's why his base, if you want to call it the base, that's why we support him, because he delivers results. He doesn't point fingers, not necessarily. And we are so tired of these politicians for decades pointing fingers at each other and not delivering the results. And number two, and then I'll listen, we genuinely believe he loves this country. He truly loves this country. And that's why we trust him. That's why his base is so excited about President Trump, and that's why we still support him after all these years.
All right, Max, I appreciate the call. Thank you. You said you wanted to listen. Here's what I will say to you. Number one, you're absolutely right. Trump is seeing results, and every day, I forget who I was listening to or who I was talking to or watching, whatever. But a lot of people are saying that Donald Trump's first 5 months in office here in term number 2 is the greatest presidential 5 months ever. And I'll let the historians debate that. I have no idea. But he is seeing results. And there is, and by the way, if you're just joining us in this hour, there was a poll that shows that 63% of the Republican base are ecstatic with Donald Trump. They love what he's doing, and he is far outpacing even Ronald Reagan. And as he was saying, as Max was saying, it's because of the results. I think also part of what's going on is President Trump has made enormous sacrifices. So to Max's point, this is a president you can absolutely tell that he loves this country. That's number one. But also, yes, he does get results. But I think that, at least for me personally, he's taken a lot of hits. I mean, the man was shot. He was shot in the ear. 2 assassination attempts. He was shot in the ear. And he has also spent enormous amounts of money on lawyers with frivolous lawsuits. We saw that happen as well. all of the litigious things that the Democrats have done across the country in places like Georgia, New York, Florida as well. Donald Trump having to pay for all of those attorneys. He had to walk away from a very successful, incredibly successful business as well to serve our country. So President Trump, he loves America. He is absolutely bringing results. But the other thing that he has done is he has made a lot of sacrifices. And for that, I will be eternally grateful to Donald Trump. I mean, he literally has taken a bullet for America. And Max, I do appreciate the call. The phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE. Always appreciate your phone calls, 866-907-3339. Got a lot more straight ahead. Dan Mandis here. This is Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Smart owner-operators make every single week as profitable as possible. One trip is not enough time to be considered profitable or unprofitable, and an entire month may be too much time to manage. 1 week is the right amount of time to deal with efficiently. To do so, look at the advantages and disadvantages of every day of the week. Match trip length to the optimum day of the week. Plan to deliver on the day you have the best opportunity of getting a load. Your personal weekly plan will vary depending on the weekly delivery flow cycle of your region, typical length of haul, personal requirements, and other factors. What's important is to have a specific weekly plan that helps you be successful. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Let's say hello to, this is Mike in Seattle. Mike, appreciate you calling Red Eye Radio. Go ahead, Mike. Thanks.
Thank you, America. I just had to give Chuck Schumer the new title, Most Macho Man in Washington, D.C. Politics, because he's earned it. He's unwilling to cooperate. He's got a negative attitude towards making America great again. And that's just my feeling. He's most macho.
Is he most macho?
Is that how you feel?
No, I don't. I'm trying to figure out if you're being serious or if you're kidding.
Well, he stands up and he likes to sort of point his finger and act like a man. But the thing is, it took a long, long time to get this country into the situation that it's in. And President Trump is doing everything possible with all of his business knowledge to pull us out of this situation, and it's going to take some time. But he just doesn't seem to be willing to cooperate enough.
Well, you know, Mike, who has been in Congress for a long time, and that would be one Chuck Schumer. He also, by the way, not so macho because it doesn't even know how to grill a hamburger. I'm sure you know that story as well. Hey, Mike, let me ask you something. In the seconds that I have left, though, I got to ask this. So you're in Seattle. Do you live in the city of Seattle, or do you live like in the suburbs? How bad is it in Seattle?
Seattle, a sanctuary city process has not. After the pandemic, there's still a lot of problems, massive amount of graffiti, massive amount of RVs, massive amount of homeless, massive amount of fentanyl. It's a miracle that we've even survived as a city to this point.
And yet the folks in Seattle will more than likely, they'll usher in another mayor that's going to be Democrat, a city council that's going to be Democrat as well, I'm assuming, right?
People are moving out. People have had enough. It's gotten to the point where the sublime has reached the ridiculous, and the people are moving out, and they're going to be, even people that are Democrats are moving to Republican states where where it's clean and nice, people that are retired, because they just, they have a Democratic mindset, but they're moving to Republican areas.
Well, I'll tell you what, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and we have a lot of those folks that have come to our state. But the thing that I've noticed is that the people that come here, they have lived in places like Seattle, Mike, kind of where you live, and they've suffered through. They have suffered through Democrat rule, and they come here where we have a lot of Republicans and some Democrats as well. But they do appreciate our way of life because they've lived life under Democrats and they hated it. Thanks for calling, Mike.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, and that is where we find my buddy Cecil calling from Nashville here on Red Eye Radio. Cecil, go ahead.
Hey, what's going on, Dan? Hey, first of all, I have changed what I'm about to say, what I was thinking. I'm going in a different direction, if you'll bear with me. This two-party system that Elon Musk is talking about trying to start up, he doesn't realize, number one, true Donald Trump supporters, they are down with MAGA. They're not going to go anywhere with no Tucker Carlson or no Candace Owens talking about some, the national debt crisis and all this other stuff. But what I don't understand is this. Elon Musk, if he cares so much about what's going on with the debt ceiling and everything that's going on, he went to work with Donald Trump to address the situation. Not only that, he's a billionaire, and aren't the tax cuts going to help him save some money? Although rich people, they have ways of deferring money and putting it where they don't pay taxes and writing stuff off,
Yeah.
But I really don't believe all this. I think that there is something more that's going on right here. I think he's a little bitter because, Joe Biden gave him those incentives and those tax cuts, and Donald Trump just basically wiped them out. I don't know if they're included inside this bill or not. That I don't know. That's why he's fighting so hard against it and blaming it on something else, though. But this is basically a dog and pony show. Donald Trump's base is solid. It ain't going nowhere. This third party he's talking about trying to start, it ain't going nowhere. Donald Trump is doing a fabulous job. I'm so proud to be an American. I'm so proud to finally have a commander-in-chief that's taking forward, ain't drawing imaginary lines in the stand. He's enforcing what needs to be done, and he's handling the business of the American citizens. And I'm just so thankful, man. I haven't really been keeping up as far as what's going on with this, great spending bill that he has. I don't know if it's passed or not. Has it passed?
It got through the Cecil. It got through the Senate. And the House of Representatives, they're supposed to be voting on that at some point today. So let's go through, and Cecil, thank you for the call. Let's go through some of what you said. Number one, as far as the battle between Elon and Donald Trump, and we spoke about this quite a bit last night, where Elon is out there saying, well, if this passes, I'm going to go start a third party. Who's with me? And he's looking for, fiscal conservatives. And so I talked about this, and maybe, Rand Paul could be the guy at the top of the ticket, and you're going to have Elon Musk, who is going to be the guy that is organizing and bankrolling and everything else. But here's the thing is, number one, Cecil, you're talking about the subsidies. Donald Trump is taking away the EV mandate, obviously, and the subsidies and everything there. But Elon Musk has always said, I don't need those subsidies. I reported this last night, so I'm at the risk of repeating myself. But Elon Musk has always said, I don't need the subsidies, the mandates either. The Tesla is a great car, so I don't need subsidies. I don't need mandates. And that's all fine, well, and good. As far as Elon and the third party, I agree with you, Cecil. I don't think anybody is going anywhere. I think that there's a lot of people that like to blow a lot of smoke. The concern is, and I spoke about this on Nashville's Morning News, where I host a morning show Monday through Friday, 6 to 10 Eastern on WTN in Nashville. I think that the one risk we have is that there could be enough folks that are peeled off from the Republican Party and Donald Trump that if you divide those two parties enough, then that will lift the Democrats. So that is my worry. But that being said, I don't think Elon's going to do it. I think that he's got enough going on. I think that he had really enough of the political world. I think that Elon had to deal with a lot of attacks. I think he had his dealerships attacked. He had his customers attacked. He himself has been attacked. He's lost a lot of credibility amongst some folks in the business world. And I don't think that he's really in any shape right now to start to go down the road of trying to start another political party. I don't think that's what he wants to do. Now, if he decides to go down that road, that is his right. And I think that it's just sad. The whole thing is just sad because I think that Trump and Elon Musk, I think that they did great things together. And Elon Musk, I think that he's got a lot of great things to do. I mean, I read a thing on, I think it was on Elon's website or his Twitter X, where he has come up with a solution where blind people will now be able to see. I think that's what I saw. It's either, I should probably look this up, blind people who will now be able to see or people that are deaf that will now be able to hear. One of those two. But he's working on such great things. And to worry about the world of politics, I don't think this is what Elon needs to do. I think Elon, he's got such a higher purpose. Because I have the greatest of respect for Elon Musk. I absolutely. And don't forget, if it wasn't for Elon Musk, those astronauts might still be in space. So Elon has done a lot of great things. And by the way, it just occurred to me that a big part of that story yesterday, and I wasn't even going to cover it today, but a big part of that story yesterday with Trump versus Elon wasn't only about, the electric vehicle mandates and the subsidies and all of that, but Trump also said that DOJ maybe needs to look at the business that the government is doing with Elon Musk and what kind of deals has Elon cut with the federal government, and maybe DOJ needs to take a look at that as well. And again, that's something, it sounds like a threat from Donald Trump. Whatever. Those two are going to fight. As Caroline Levitt said, boys are going to be boys, whatever. I wish that they would somehow find a way to work together because Elon Musk, I believe, and there's some Republicans that will say, no, he didn't do a good job. Of course, the Democrats are hyperbolic on everything about Donald Trump and Elon Musk. But I think that Elon did do a great job with DOJ. Maybe we didn't see all of the savings that we were promised or that he wanted, but I also don't believe that it was a waste of time. And the exposure, what Elon Musk was able to expose was absolutely incredible as well. So that is a narrative that we can take into the midterm elections, where look at all the Democrats that we're spending money on. When you look at what we found out through, for example, USAID and, $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq, those kinds of things. Again, even if we didn't save all that money that was promised, the trillions of dollars that we were told that we would be saving, at least we know what the money was being spent on. And if you want to go back to that kind of spending, then you go back to voting for the Democrats. But if you want a sane government, if you want things that are, if you want our money to be spent on things that help the American people, well, then you stick with Donald Trump and you stick with the Republican Party. So, Cecil, it's a long-winded answer from the talk show host on what you had to say, but it was a great comment. The phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE. Lindsay is also in Nashville, and she's on Red Eye Radio. Lindsay, go ahead.
Hiya, Dan. I have to agree with you about Elon, and if I were him, I would send those two astronauts right back up there.
The astronauts might have an issue with that, but I appreciate that. Sure.
They were ungrateful. But what I called about was earlier, Max said that he was a Democrat, and yet he appreciates the patriotism of Trump. And I feel this huge gap between the new Democrats and the old baby boomer ones, like my mom. She thinks JFK saved the world. and she still has it in her head that Trump is a bad dictator guy, and she doesn't even have that much media in her life. But what she does get is that Democrats have always saved the world and helped the little guys, and it's just the old mentality that doesn't understand the new left at all and their plans.
Well, it's interesting, Lindsay. You bring up a great point, and there's a lot of layers to that. So here's a couple of things that I will say. Number one is there's still a lot of older Democrats that do believe what the younger Democrats believe as well. I mean, there's two different types of Democrats right now, in my opinion. You do have the ones that are the more, JFK type Democrats, and, they believe that JFK saved the world and JFK was a great president, which I believe that he was. But when you look at the radicalization of the current Democrat Party, from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you could talk about even the idiotness of Chuck Schumer and some of the things that he does. When you look at Jasmine Crockett, for example, they are so far to the left that they're absolutely unrecognizable. A lot of these Democrats today, they would probably, look at a JFK, even a Barack Obama, and they just dismiss them because they don't feel like they are or were progressive enough, and they weren't radical enough. And I think that the new Democrat Party is nowhere near what the old Democrat Party used to be. There, at least to me, you would have Barack Obama, where he would deport folks. You even would have, Joe Biden. Early in his career, he talked about the perils of illegal immigration. It was only until he got into office and he was out of his mind, and other people, in my opinion, were controlling the border. It wasn't the president of the United States. Whoever it was opened up the border. And so when you look at the current version of the Democrat Party, I think that they are just out of their mind and completely out of touch, not only with what the Democrat Party used to be, but they're also out of touch with the vast majority of the American people. And so we'll have to see where the midterm elections go. But you're going to have a lot of Democrats that are saying, oh, well, we've won these special elections across America. Well, the reason they're winning, in my opinion, these special elections is because Democrats right now, they are really motivated. I mean, they are. They're motivated with hate. They hate Donald Trump. They hate America. They certainly hate Republicans. They hate the red states as well. And there's my opinion, a good number of them are, quite frankly, just vile. I mean, look at the guy who is wants to be the mayor of New York. I don't have his name in front of me, but you look at him. He is a socialist. He's not even a Democrat. He's a socialist. He's a democratic socialist. And so ultimately what that means is this is the new direction of the Democrat Party. And so you have Donald Trump, and even Trump said, I think he said it earlier today or yesterday, where Trump was like, I don't want to deal with this in the great state, in the great city of New York. I don't want to deal with it. But you got the Democrats who are afraid. This is how leftist these Democrats are. How leftist are these Democrats now, these days? They are so leftist that they won't even call this guy out. They're afraid of this guy. And so they may not agree with him, but they're afraid that they'll be canceled by their own party if they come out in disagreement with this guy and call out his city-owned grocery stores and the $65 million for transgender procedures and services and all of that, the sanctuary city policies. All of that stuff is so incredibly radical. And the mainstream of the Democrat Party, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, they won't even call that out. And so you have some people who will say, oh, well, he doesn't represent the main line of the Democrat Party. Well, then why is the main line of the Democrat Party afraid to call his ass out? That would be my question. Where is Hillary Clinton? Where is Bill Clinton? Where is Barack Obama? Where is Hakeem Jeffries? Where is Chuck Schumer? And all of these Democrats, they're nowhere to be found because they know that the dude who is a Democrat socialist who wants to be the mayor of New York is incredibly powerful. And so you can say, well, he doesn't represent the Democrat Party. Really? Well, then why is the Democrat Party so afraid of him? 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Throw me a bone, won't you? And follow me on X at Dan Mandis Show. You can also find me on Facebook as well. Also, at Dan Mandis Show. Coming up, a couple of big victories for Donald Trump, actually, just here in the last several hours. So we are going to get into that. More of your calls as well. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. I'm going to tell you part of where we're going today is Donald Trump's, what some are saying, the left is calling Donald Trump's assault on the media. And I'm going to prove that it obviously is not. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. Thank you very much for joining us. Gary and Eric, they will be back next Sunday night, Monday morning. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find out more about that at the website 99.7WTN.com. You can also follow me on X and Facebook at Dan Mandis Show. Big night for Donald Trump. Apparently, he has come to a settlement with CBS regarding that interview with Kamala Harris. Now, remember that this goes back to the presidential campaign. By the way, this is a big win for Donald Trump because he has had, I love this, he has had I told you so after I told you so, and this is another one. Because what CBS did was wrong. She was being interviewed. Kamala Harris was being interviewed by CBS and Bill Whitaker. And she was asked about Israel's action in Gaza. Now, the accusation being that CBS and Bill Whitaker asked her the question. She completely shanked the answer. So they cleaned it up by pulling another part of the interview and replacing her train wreck of an answer with a more concise and coherent message. And so I've got the audio, and I want to, because it is important. So this is the original answer that CBS decided to replace, but this is the original answer to the question.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Now, you hear how terrible of an answer that is. I mean, she's halting. Her voice started like quivering because she didn't know how she wanted to answer the question. CBS aired that piece of audio in a promo for the interview. Once the interview actually ran, this was the edited answer that they put in.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it seems that...
So shorter, more concise, and they pulled that from a different part of the interview. And so people lost their minds because clearly what CBS was trying to do was make her sound more confident and more in command. They ultimately accused the Trump administration, Donald Trump, accused 60 Minutes of election interference. Because remember, at the time, you got to put this in the proper context. At the time, Kamala's running for president, and her word salads had most certainly become a thing during the election. So, and also remember, she wasn't doing a lot of interviews. And so they interview her. She completely shanks the answer. So they find another part of the interview where she was more concise, and they put that in. Now, the reason why this was election interference, in my opinion, is because CBS took out the part where she was word salading, because part of the campaign for Donald Trump was listen to her word salads. And so there was a big word salad that was in this interview, and so they replaced it. And Trump brought the lawsuit, which has now been settled. Paramount Global and CBS agreed on Tuesday to pay Donald Trump a sum that could reach north of $30 million to settle the president's election interference lawsuit against the network. And I truly believe that it was election interference. I truly believe that CBS was trying to make Kamala Harris look better because they didn't want Donald Trump to win. And therefore, they edited the interview. That's what I believe, based on what I've seen. So Donald Trump is going to get $16 million up front. This is going to cover legal fees, costs of the case, and contributions to his future presidential library or charitable causes to be determined at Donald Trump's discretion. There's also, they're saying, anticipation that there will be another allocation in the mid-8 figures set aside for advertisements, public service announcements, or other similar transmissions in support of conservative causes by the network. Fox News Digital has learned about all of this with these considerations. CBS ultimately is going to be paying in excess of the $15 million that ABC paid Donald Trump to settle a defamation lawsuit last year. Sources close to the situation telling Fox News Digital that CBS has agreed also to update its editorial standards to install a mandatory new rule. Going forward, the network will promptly release full, unedited transcripts of future presidential candidates' interviews. People involved in the settlement talks have referred this as the Trump rule. And that makes all the sense in the world. Why would you not release the full transcript? And remember that CBS, they fought the release of those transcripts. So that's a big victory for Donald Trump. Bottom line is, Trump wanted the rule put in about ensuring that an interview is presented accurately. That's a good thing, isn't it? Now, I thought it was interesting. Bernie Sanders was on Joe Rogan's show. I want you to listen to Bernie's take on this whole thing because, you know, and I call him, people who listen to my morning show on WTN know that I call Bernie Sanders balloon hair Bernie, because his hair is like always, you know, going all over the place, like it's staticky, like you rub the balloon on it. So he was on Joe Rogan's show, and listen to this.
All right. He is suing CBS for this Kamala Harris interview. So do I think, how many, I cannot tell you the number of stories done about me that were not good stories.
Right.
That were dishonest stories. That's what a free press is about. You don't like it, you got to live with it. All right.
Really? If you don't like that a media outlet is lying about you or an opponent, then you've got to live with it. Are you kidding me, Bernie Sanders? Really? And by the way, the CBS lawsuit was about CBS trying to impact or influence the election by making Kamala Harris look better. They did that by editing an interview. Dishonestly editing the interview. And it's interesting, too, because, Bernie Sanders and all these people in the media, they're always talking about how, Russia is trying to influence our election. Donald Trump was coordinating with Russia and colluding with Russia to interfere in the election. And it's like, no, that was actually CBS. And they were colluding with the Democrat Party and Kamala Harris and her campaign. That was CBS, actually, that was doing that. And so Bernie, when he says, if, you want to be in politics, you have to tolerate the media telling lies about you. No, you don't, actually. No, you don't. Donald Trump has proven that you can fight the mainstream media and win, especially in instances where they are clearly wrong. It's just an insane way of thinking with Bernie Sanders. There's more.
You don't think that there's a real issue in editing conversations to give someone an answer that's different than what they really answered?
Joe, I've been on 8 zillion shows, right? In my life.
Okay.
All
right, by the way, I want you to notice that Joe Rogan was incredibly concise in his question to Bernie Sanders. Bernie refuses to answer.
Now, should I sue you if you ask me some stupid question that I don't like, right? Or that you do something. Should I sue you?
Yeah, but that's not what he's getting. He has
sued ABC.
Mm-hmm.
He has sued Meta.
So he goes on. He never answers the question. Bernie Sanders never answers that question. He just bloviates and filibusters, arms going all over the place like Bernie does. But it's a legit point. And by the way, just because Donald Trump has sued CBS, just because he has sued ABC, and just because the president has sued Meta, doesn't mean that he's wrong or that he's trying to be authoritarian. No, Donald Trump was wronged in all of those cases. The Democrats are trying to use that as an example about how Donald Trump is supposed to be some sort of a strong man, right? No. He was wronged in every one of those cases. I want you to think about this. Look at the accusation where Donald Trump has been accused of saying that those white supremacists were fine people. Remember that whole debacle in Charlottesville, Virginia, when he said there's fine people on both sides, and the media said, oh my gosh, he's calling white supremacists fine people. No, he wasn't. That was completely taken out of context, and everybody knows that now. So I love that Donald Trump said, you know what? Shine this, man. Screw this. We're going to start fighting back, and I love that. Because CBS and ABC and Meta, they were dishonest. Why did Donald Trump sue ABC? Remember this? George Stephanopoulos said that Donald Trump had been found liable for rape in that civil case brought by E. Jean Carroll. He had not been found liable for rape. He had actually been found liable for sexual abuse and defamation. Big difference, folks. Big difference, George. And so they settled for $15 million and a public apology plus legal fees. So Donald Trump, even though, balloon hair Bernie doesn't agree, Donald Trump was well within his right to sue. Trump also sued Meta. You know why? The parent company of Facebook, after they suspended his account following January 6th of 2021. He said, no, Meta, that was impermissible. That was impermissible censorship by removing Donald Trump from its platforms. Now, he said that this was prompted by pressure from the Democrats. They settled that case, and Donald Trump got millions of dollars as well. So Donald Trump, in my opinion, he was right for suing Meta. He was right for suing ABC. He was right for suing CBS. That doesn't mean that he's some sort of a strong man. All it means is that the president felt like he had the right to sue, and they ultimately settled. So I think that there is some vindication in the fact that these media outlets did decide to settle. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Let's say hello to, this is Spencer calling from Ohio. Spencer, you're on Red Eye Radio. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm good. Go ahead, sir. Thanks for calling in.
Good. Well, I was actually going to talk about something from earlier, but now that we've moved on, I can focus on this. I am an independent, first of all. I support America. I'm not a candidate. I will say, though, that what you're talking about has been a little misleading. Fox News has actually edited 2 of Trump's interviews, and they have admitted to it, his Super Bowl interview in 2024 and also their barbershop interview. They edited out some of his more rambling responses, which was indicated when they released the transcripts.
So let me ask you this. Did Kamala Harris sue? And why not?
No. But I will say this, though. The lawsuit was for $20 billion, which CBS settled for $30 million. And they have indicated that they settled that lawsuit because they are in the middle of an $8.4 billion merger with Skydance Media.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think necessarily that they settled to admit fault. They settled because they wanted to get out of the situation as quickly as possible.
No, they settled. But, I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to argue about it. But I will say that I think that it is vindication for Donald Trump. Because if you listen to the audio, and you also have to put it in the proper perspective. What time is it? I have time for this. So you've got to put it in the proper perspective. For example, everyone knows that Donald Trump bloviates. Everyone knows that Donald Trump, the man goes on forever. I will tell you that is a supporter of Donald Trump and his policies. It drives me nuts. He calls it the weave. He's very proud of his weave, and he does go all over the place, and everybody knows that. The difference, though, and I don't know about the Fox and the editing and all of that, but for Kamala Harris, I don't believe that it's the same thing, and I'm going to tell you why. As I said in that monologue, the reason I believe that it's different is because the Kamala Harris's word salads, they were part of the conversation during the election. That was one of the things that people on the right were talking about for a long time with Kamala Harris, is that not only the word salads, but that she was weak on foreign policy. So when the question was asked, it was 2 things. Number one, it was a showing that she did still have that incredible ability to word salad. But number 2, it exposed her as being weak on Israel and also weak on foreign policy. It showed a lack of confidence in foreign policy. They edited in a more concise and confident answer. And so to me, it is clear what they were doing. So, I mean, whatever the justification is or the reasoning for them settling the lawsuit, I think Donald Trump is right here.
Okay, I can agree with that. I will agree that Kamala was a poor candidate. And
she was a terrible candidate, man. She was awful.
If you allow me one more thing, because you said something earlier I just have to respond to.
Go ahead, man.
You said that Donald Trump has sacrificed greatly since he took office. I will note that his net worth has more than doubled since he took public office in 2017, and that a lot of that has come from companies he started since he became president, as well as the things that he sold while president, fungible tokens, Bibles, watches, cologne. The list goes on.
I don't know if he's making number one, and that may be true. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know that he walked away from his companies that he was running before his first run for president. I don't know about the tokens. I don't know about the Bibles. I know that he's got the cologne out there, but I don't know if his net worth has actually doubled. I'm gonna grok that and see if that is true. I'm not calling you a liar. I just know that there's.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to seek the truth themselves as well. So I appreciate that you're going to look it up.
Yeah, I'll look it up and we'll see. Maybe you know what? Maybe it has. I still think though that taking a bullet for the country is also quite the sacrifice. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, I think anybody getting shot is a sacrifice.
All right, Spencer, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. 866-90-RED-EYE. We'll return next.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio, 866-90 Red Eye, 866-907-3339. Guy called before the break, and he took umbrage with my statement that Donald Trump has made sacrifices for his country in running for president. And the guy made the claim that the president's worth has more than doubled since he took office before 2017. Which I guess that's a popular talking point for folks on the left. I really don't know. So I'm, of course, looking it up because I like to be fair. And just so you folks know, you don't know me from Adam, but I'm just filling in. But if you've ever heard me, for example, my radio show in Nashville, I don't have to be right. And I don't have to like defeat callers. I truly don't. I will give people props all the time if I feel like they've presented a good argument and so forth. So I don't have to defeat callers. So I'm not one of those, hey, you got to own the libs kind of people. That being said, what I am seeing, because I grokked it, all right? So has Donald Trump's net worth doubled since he took office in 2017? Grok says Donald Trump's net worth has not more than doubled since he became president in January of 2017, based on available estimates. Point host, although it's a lot more complicated than that. Details straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. So I do want to make sure that I'm fair because I try to be fair. So if you're following along, earlier we had a call. I had said, and I believe rightly so, that Donald Trump has sacrificed for his country by becoming president, of course, and running for that second term and so on. Guy called up and his comment was that Donald Trump's income has doubled since he became president back in 2017. And I looked it up on Grok, and Grok said, no, it hasn't. But I also want to be fair and put it in the proper perspective. Donald Trump has a lot of money in, for example, real estate holdings. And so real estate holdings, you know, the value goes up and down all the time. And so, and I don't know what he's invested in and so forth, but everybody's got, you know, real estate holdings and got accounts and all of these other things. So the value goes up and down. Now, all that being said, I don't care that Donald Trump and his income has doubled over the last, 12 years, I guess it would be. I don't care about that. I truly don't. I believe that the president has every right to, do what he needs to do to make money. And if he wants to, sell cologne, which personally I think that's kind of silly, but whatever. But here's the deal. Do you know what Barack Obama's net worth was before becoming president in 2009? It was approximately $1.3 billion. Do you know what he's worth now? At least $70 million. And some people say it's a lot more than that. Some people say it's $135 million. So whatever. Donald Trump could be, on the golf course every single day if he wanted to be. Donald Trump could be just hanging out doing whatever it is that he wanted to be. He had a great life. That man had a great life before he decided to run for president. And again, not to belabor the point, but he has been shot twice, or shot once. He got shot once, and then there was that second assassination attempt. The guy didn't even get a shot off. But my point being is that even though he's made a lot of money, however he's made the money, I still believe that he has sacrificed for his country. And I think that if you understand what the man has gone through over the last, 12 years, you know that he's sacrificed. Again, he had a great life, and now he's, reviled by half the country. Half the country hates him. So for, President Trump, if you don't think he sacrificed, well, that's okay. Do I think that he should be selling cologne? By the way, I'm wondering if anybody has bought Donald Trump's new cologne. Have you seen it that he's selling cologne? I don't think that he should be selling cologne. I don't think he needs to. According to the caller, his income is more than doubled. But if that's what he wants to do, and here's the important part. I don't think he's broken any laws, has he? Has Donald Trump broken any laws with all of this doubling of the income? Because I guarantee you that if he had broken some laws, that the Democrats would be on to him. Oh, and by the way, don't get me started on the Biden clan and how they made money. For years, they made money with influence peddling. So whatever. I'm not going to argue about, although apparently I'm going to. I'm not going to, spend a lot of time defending whether or not Donald Trump has made sacrifices for his country. Clearly, he has. All right, let's move on. I want to talk about, there is a story about University of Pennsylvania. I got so much stuff today. University of Pennsylvania has now come out and they have said, all right, you know what? Let me find the headline. Here's the headline. University of Pennsylvania agrees to ban transgender athletes in agreement with the federal government. Now, you know about this story. No doubt you know about Riley Gaines, and you know that and there's no other way to say it, she had her medals taken away when swimmer Lia Thomas, a man who was pretending to be a woman, actually won the medals instead in that swimming competition. And so that started a whole big conversation about these transgender people in the in sports, in women's sports, because you had men pretending to be women and ultimately getting not only medals, records, scholarships as well, and prizes. And so you got all these all these women and conservatives that have been saying, "What's up with this?" All of a sudden, all you got to do is, put on a dress and a wig, and you can compete in women's sports and take prize money and scholarships. How in the world is that fair? And the Democrats, they've been all fine with this. They've been celebrating all of this. Well, apparently that stops today. Penn has agreed, and this broke a couple of hours ago. Penn agreed to a number of action items to resolve what the department calls Title IX violations. The Education Department saying in a statement, those items include restoring to female athletes all individual UPenn Division I female categories. In other words, dudes are not going to be playing in women's sports any longer at UPenn. Issuing a public statement saying the university will comply with Title IX and will not allow males to compete in female athletic programs, and sending a personalized letter of apology to any female swimmers who were affected. Now, what I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know, maybe somebody can help me out with this, but what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, so then does Riley Gaines, because if you know the story, she was swimming in a swim meet. I think it was a championship, whatever it was. I don't follow swimming, but I know the story. And it was for the championship. And so you've got Lia Thomas, and Lia Thomas is, a guy who identifies as a woman, whatever you want to say. And he and Lia Thomas, it was so close. Basically it was a tie in this swim meet. And so they decided to give Lia Thomas the medal because they just had to, because of, political correctness or whatever you want to say. And so that sends Riley Gaines on this whole journey to fight men playing in women's sports. And it's not just men playing in women's sports. It's men in women's bathrooms. It's men in our locker rooms, in women's locker rooms. It's violating the space of women's locker rooms and bathrooms and so forth. I mean, whether we're talking about, a gym where people just go to work out and you've got guys walking into gyms and just getting dressed right there in the women's room because they identify as a woman. This whole thing has been horrifying for women for years. And just a few hours ago, huge news, where Linda McMahon, of course, she is Department of Education. She leads the Department of Education. She was on Fox News with Laura Ingraham, and she made the announcement. This is very big news.
Thanks to President Trump and the Trump administration, what he campaigned on, what he actually signed an executive order on, which was that men will not be able to compete in women's sports, was acknowledged by the University of Pennsylvania. We've signed an agreement with them, and we hope that that agreement is going to be a template for other universities who acknowledge that there is no room for men in women's sports, not only during the competition, but also in the locker room and other intimate spaces where these women were required to be with males who changed in front of them. So this is a big deal. The university is apologizing. It is taking away the titles that were incorrectly given to men. It has stated that it will not have anything on its website other than the fact that they are complying, with Title IX. We are just very pleased with the outcome that we had today. It's an utter triumph for President Trump and for the administration, but mostly for the women and girls who will come behind the Riley Gaines and the Paula Scanlons.
Yeah, that's huge. So you heard them say that the medals or the prizes will be taken away from those males who are competing in female sports. But then what do you do with them? Like, why would they not give those medals? And maybe they are, and I'm just not seeing it. But they should give those medals to Riley Gaines. Because she supposedly, technically came in second. Some people will say that she came in first place, but they're essentially tied. So why would they not, if they're taking the medals away from, Lia Thomas, why wouldn't they just give them to Riley Gaines if they're not? I mean, that would just seem to make sense. In a statement, Philadelphia council members, Democrats, of course, said they were deeply disappointed in the University of Pennsylvania's decision to reward a politically motivated campaign, they say, that seeks to erase transgender athletes under the narrative of equity in sports. I don't know, man. It just seems fair. Men should not be playing in women's sports, period. Title IX. I mean, doesn't that make all the sense in the world? There was a story. Oh, gosh. It was just recently. I wish I would have remembered to look this up. But there was a story recently, and I thought it was interesting. A transgender woman, a guy, whatever you want to call it, a guy playing women's sports on a softball team. And I believe this was at the high school or the collegiate level. But, the star of the softball team, and they went all the way to win the state and the national championships, whatever it was. But it was horrifying because you had all these girls with a male on their team. And the male is the star player. And the male did something great against, of course, an all-female team. And all these females are high-fiving the dude on the women's softball team. And I saw that, and I'm thinking, those girls, do they not understand the unfairness of this? Because if that guy was on the other team, you would have lost. So you don't understand maybe they understand, but they don't accept or admit the absolute unfairness that has been going on in women's sports where men are allowed to play. And so I love that the University of Pennsylvania has now come out and said, nope, no more will we have men on the women's sports teams. That's number one. Number two, we're going to clarify the policy. And number three, we're going to strip those men of those medals. Here's more from Linda McMahon.
I mean, how can these young women be denied their opportunity for scholarships, for medals? And just they have to be able to enter into these sports and to feel safe. I mean, Peyton McNabb got a volleyball smashed against her face, broke her nose.
Oh, God.
And
Horrible.
she had brain injury from it. Then we have other athletes, Stephanie Turner, who took a knee instead of competing, in a fencing competition because she didn't want to face a man.
Right. And you saw that. I mean, there have been so many women that have been injured by these guys playing against women in the women's leagues. And it is this kind of preposterous policy and belief, I believe, it's the reason why so many women have crossed over, Democrat women have crossed over and supported the Republican Party. By the way, Riley Gaines, she was on with Laura Ingraham.
To say that I, of course, am grateful for Secretary McMahon, for President Trump, for even Attorney General Bondi. She's been fantastic at the Department of Justice on this issue is an understatement. I feel vindicated. I feel like pigs are flying. I feel like hell has frozen over. So it is a fantastic day, of course, for sanity, for common sense. But I think more broadly for women, for humanity, for the little girl that I'm growing inside of me right now that I will welcome to the world in just a few weeks. I think of her. I think of her future. That is what Donald Trump and, of course, Secretary McMahon and myself, that is what we are fighting for. So very, very excited about today's news. Yeah,
it is very big news. And you know what this is? It's another win for Donald Trump and the girls. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We'll return next.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
$866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. All right, so I was able to crowdsource this information. Minnesota softball state championships a month or so ago, where they had a 6-foot-tall male athlete pitching for Champlain Park. Of course, again, this is a guy pretending to be a girl. He goes by the name Marissa. And old Marissa was one heck of a pitcher. And they beat the other team thanks to their 6-foot male pitcher. So hopefully this is all going to go away very soon.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. 866-907-3339. Gary and Eric, they return next Sunday night, Monday morning. And I know that we're all looking forward to having them back. One of the things I've been talking off and on about, a lot of topics today. And one of the things that the president has been talking about is regarding CNN and the false reporting. The president says the false reporting that CNN did on the Iran nuclear bombing. So you all know the story. I don't have to go over it again. But there's a lot of people making a lot of hay over what the president said regarding that false reporting. He said this earlier today. He was taking a tour of Alligator Alcatraz, and he does say that he wants to prosecute CNN for that false reporting. Listen.
And he may be prosecuted also for having given false reports on the attack in Iran. They were given totally false reports. It was totally obliterated, and our people have to be celebrated, not come home and say, what do you mean we didn't hit the target? We hit the target perfectly. The pilots came home and they said we hit the target perfectly. So they may be very well prosecuted for that. What they did there we think is totally illegal. Okay, let's go. Follow us.
All right, so let's go. He's on his way to give a tour of Alligator Alcatraz. This is one of those moments where I'm going to disagree with President Trump. I don't think that CNN, unless there's been a change in, the laws out there, but I don't believe that they actually broke any law when they reported that story. Now, somebody would have leaked, if somebody leaked the story to them, well, then I think that's a different conversation. The hunt does continue for the person who, whether it is somebody within the intelligence communities or somebody within Congress, somebody did leak that classified information. CNN came around, and of course, New York Times did as well. They then published the information. So I don't know if you can go after CNN for publishing the information, the classified information. I don't know if I don't know if there is an actual law against that, because this is the kind of reporting that has been done. But the people that leaked it, those are the people that Donald Trump needs to find. And by the way, for CNN, I don't think that they have lost a lot of credibility. And I don't know if CNN really, to be perfectly honest, do they still have any credibility left as CNN when it comes to Donald Trump? I don't know if they do. But for President Trump, I think that this is a situation where he has experienced this many times before. You've got the media, and they will do whatever they can to say, Trump's wrong, Trump's wrong, Trump's wrong. And then, lo and behold, we find out that Donald Trump was right. So CNN, I think that their reporting was erroneous. I think that it is criminal from a journalistic standpoint. I think that they are always looking for the counter narrative to anything Donald Trump has accomplished. But for CNN, I think that their ratings, I believe their ratings have still cratered. I don't think their ratings have seen any improvement. And the reason for that has been exhibited here in the last couple of weeks on this story. I mean, when the Iranians come out and the nuclear watchdogs come out and NATO comes out and Israel comes out and they all say that the nuclear program with within Iran was set back, a couple of years, I believe them. And I think that this was an incredible, and I don't mean to, relitigate last week's news cycle, but I think that this was an incredible moment for Donald Trump. And I think that the fact that you've got all of these other outlets coming out and saying, yeah, it was set back. I think the question is, how far back was it set back? I mean, are we talking about 6 months? Are we talking about a year? Are we talking about, 2 to 3 years? I mean, I don't even think Iran knows yet, because there's a lot of rubble there. Trump used the word obliterate. Okay, so maybe he shouldn't have used the word obliterate. I don't know. I've seen the video. It looks obliterated to me. So I guess that's going to be a conversation that we continue to talk about. Bottom line here is that this was a really well executed, precise operation. And I believe that it was a success. All right, there's some folks that have been waiting for a long time to speak on the radio program. I want to get to them real quick. This is Eduardo calling. And Eduardo, thank you very much for holding. You are on Red Eye Radio. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think we need to take this immigration thing further. I just saw a story where there's military people from Colombia that are mercenaries and that are working with the Mexican cartels. So I think we need to engage them. And I told other people during the Trump presidency, because we're not going to leave this for the Democrats, we need to get rid of Maduro. The Tren de Agua thing is going to continue if the Democrats get back in power.
So just to let you know, I'm not a big fan of regime change. I'm not a big fan of, trying to take out leaders from other countries.
Force them out.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so here's the question then. Let's say let's just go down this road. Let's say we force out Maduro. All right. Then who takes over for him?
Well, we have elections. There's people that are in Spain. They went over there in exile. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of
the point that I mean, Eduardo, you bring up a great point. And that great point is that, Maduro is no friend to America. I do believe, and there's a whole thing out there. I don't know if you've seen it. It's really interesting. They call it weaponized migration, where countries like Maduro and countries like Venezuela with Maduro at the helm, and what he's basically done, as you no doubt know, and I think you may have even mentioned it, emptying the prisons and all these bad guys coming into America. Now, the weaponized migration, what that is, maybe you have heard about this, but it's this theory that our enemies, namely, you've got Iran, you've got China, you've got Russia, you've got North Korea, and they sort of work with and encourage people like leaders like Maduro in Venezuela to get these people to come into our country to destabilize our country, because a destabilized America then means that we are weaker, which means that China and Russia and North Korea and Iran are stronger. So that's what they're trying to do. And I believe that that is absolutely true, that our enemies, China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia, I do believe that they work with Venezuela and perhaps other enemy states to destabilize America with this weaponized migration. The conversation regarding whether or not we should try to implement some sort of regime change, you never really know what's going to happen with regime change. You don't know if the next guy is going to be worse. You don't know how the people of that country will ultimately respond. So I will just say that I believe you've got a great point. However, I am leery of regime change because I always worry about what's next and could it actually get worse. But I do appreciate the call. Alice is in Roswell, New Mexico on Red Eye Radio. Alice, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Hi. I wanted to say that I hope the House of Representatives, I hope they do the work in getting the conference for that bill, because the Senate took out two parts of what I'm really interested in. I have a different worldview. They took out the Planned Parenthood, the government defunding Planned Parenthood only and they made it only for a year. The Senate made it only for a year,
right,
that the government would defund Planned Parenthood only for a year, whereas the House had it for 10 years, that they would defund Planned Parenthood for 10 years. And then the House had the other part of the bill. They would defund transgender procedures permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Senate put it back in where it would stay in there. So those two things, I hope that the House fights for those two things. And I'm saying if it takes longer than July 4th for them to deliver this bill to President Trump, then take the time. Work that in.
So I may, Alice, I may need you, Alice, if you have a link, because I looked up the transgender stuff. I am not seeing anything and I could be wrong, because I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this bill. I have not seen anything where the transgender funding was left in the Senate version of this bill. The House didn't have it in their version, and from what I'm seeing, the Senate does not have it in their version. As a matter of fact, there's provisions that actually bans federal funding for this type of transgender, surgeries and procedures and on and on. So if I'm going to give you my email address. It's my email address for my local radio station, dan@997wtn.com. That is my email address. If you could send me a link, I'm not seeing the transgender stuff in there. So if you got something different, please send it to me, dan@997wtn.com. And by the way, I agree with you on both those points. I don't think that our government, I don't think that our taxpayer dollars should be paying for anything related to transgender surgeries, whether, we're talking about, Medicare, Medicaid, all that kind of stuff should not be in there. That's number one. And number two, we'll have to see what the House does as it relates to abortion. So those are both great conversations and great questions. And Alice, I appreciate the call. Kyle is in Chicago or outside of Chicago. Kyle, I hope you're far away outside of Chicago. Go ahead.
Yes, actually I am. I'm from a suburb outside of Chicago, but you probably don't know what it is. With that said, I do want to thank you for letting me be on the air and speak on this. I've called and tried to talk to sports radio shows, and they'll let you talk about whatever you want except this topic, and that is a biological man competing against biological women not being appropriate. And there was actually a case that was fairly a little while ago, someone named Phelan Fox, who was competing in MMA. So this was full cage fighting, beating up women, actually cracked one woman's orbital bone, had a record of 5-1, and I'd like to see that record flip from 5-1 to 0-6.
Phelan Fox? F-A-I-L. I'm trying to look it up. F-A-I-L-O-N?
F-A-L-L. F-A-L-L-O-N, and then Fox.
All right. MMA fighting? That is horrific. Because I've seen MMA fighting, and I will admit I'm not a fan, but putting a man in a cage with a woman, that is horrifying.
Yeah, that's way beyond swimming or something else, which I'm not for that either. We have these different divisions for a reason.
Well, you're right. And, here it is. Here's the story. When transgender fighter Phelan Fox broke her opponent's skull in an MMA fight. I mean, you say it's true. It looks like it is true. And you're saying sports radio won't let you talk about this. I'd be willing to bet that the reason sports radio doesn't want this discussed is because they try to stay away from anything political, and they might see this as political. I just think this is horrifying. And one of these things, and you're right, where you look at these guys who play in the women's sports, and they have done terrible in the male sports. So you've got like that Lia Thomas out there with the swimming against Riley Gaines. I forget what college it was, University of Pennsylvania. And, Lia Thomas, I don't know what his name was when he identified as a man, but he was terrible. I mean, I don't know if he had any victories. But then he goes into the women's categories. He swims in the women's categories, and lo and behold, he's cleaning up. Now, I don't know how Phelan Fox. I don't know how Phelan, whatever. I don't know how he was as far as an MMA fighter. Was he doing anything as a male fighter?
No, actually, served in the military, fathered a child, and then got out of the military and decided to transition. And then after the transition, decided to compete in MMA. And, as far as I was concerned, everything was okay until they decided to compete in MMA. And I just can't be okay with that. That a man shouldn't be beating up a woman. That's the way I was raised.
Well, that's the way we were all raised. Unfortunately, the Democrats, they have lost their ever-loving minds, and you're right. I mean, there's nothing else to say except you're right, and trying to get as much daylight on this as possible and exposing this is really important. So I appreciate you calling from outside of Chicago. Got to run your break. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. 866-907-3339.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. Due to safety concerns, many motor carriers have policies that limit or prohibit the use of cruise control. If your motor carrier does allow you to use cruise control, you should only use it in good driving conditions during daylight hours and on roads that have light traffic, few curves or hills, and a consistent speed limit. Never use cruise control when operating in adverse driving conditions, including wet, icy, or slippery roads, during rush hour in heavy traffic or on congested highways, at night, or when you're tired or fatigued. During all of these driving scenarios, you want to be controlling and adjusting your speed as you drive instead of having to suddenly brake if you encounter an obstacle. In the case of a slippery road surface, you want to be able to slow your vehicle by not accelerating instead of using the brakes whenever possible. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Eight 866-90 Red Eye is the phone number. Mary is in Richmond, Virginia, place I used to live. I love Richmond. Hey, Mary, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for taking my call. My question is, I'm glad for this win for Title IX for women's sports. Do you think that will open the door for the sororities on the campuses of these colleges where the women are forced to take the transgenders into their society? Their sororities?
I don't know, because a lot of this depends on funding, and I don't know if sororities get funding. I truly don't know, but I mean, if they're being forced to do it, I don't think they should be forced to do it, and I think that if that is happening in the sororities, then the women in the sororities they have a choice in being in that sorority. I don't believe that they should be allowing men in there, but the women also don't have to take it. If they don't want to be in that sorority, they can leave.
Yeah, I know there was one sorority, I can't remember how long ago it was, I'd say within the last 5 years, where they sued. They were actually forced to take this one man into the sorority. And they sued, and they lost.
Yeah. Yeah, because the courts will say that they're discriminating against this person. I'm assuming that's why they lost. And then the sorority, then they have no choice but to take the person that, is sort of forcing their way into the party. And then the sorority is like, well, do we continue on as a sorority? It's an awful situation.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. Follow me on X, if you would, please, at Dan Mandis Show. I was desperately trying to get up to 10,000 followers, which, by the way, 10,000 followers is nothing. But I wanted to get up to 10,000 followers. I'm like 100 followers away from 10,000. And by the way, I will, if you're like, a robot or whatever, that's okay. You can follow me too. I just want to get to that 10,000. But a guy sends me, he added me on X. Jeffrey Adame, Adame, whatever. But he says, hey, Dan, Republicans call it the big, beautiful bill. Democrats call it the big, ugly, bloated bill. Why don't we meet in the middle and call it the big bill, but has a really nice personality and a little water weight? Very good. I love it. That is very funny. So I wanted to check out this guy because I thought that that's a great post. He's got one follower, and he's only made 50 posts in his life. We ought to post more often, Jeffrey, because that was pretty funny. Talking about, by the way, there is a lot going on. So apparently, from what I understand, the House is going to vote on their version of the big, beautiful bill today. Today is Wednesday, right? So today they're going to vote on it. But I think that ultimately all sides are going to get together. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, I played this cut earlier because I think that it's an important cut, because what we need to know is ultimately, are they going to try to change what the Senate did to their bill? Because remember, this bill, it originated in the House, then it goes over to the Senate, and the Senate make their changes, and then it goes back to the House, and then everybody's got to agree on all of the changes. Now, it did pass the Senate yesterday. 3 holdouts, Rand Paul, Susan Collins of Maine, Tom Tillis, of course, of the soon-to-be retiring Tom Tillis of North Carolina. They voted no. But this was a massive undertaking. We had the vote-a-rama. That took hours and hours. And the Democrats, of course, mandating that this bill, about 1,000 pages or so, be read out loud in the Senate. Again, wasting time. But at the end of the day, it did get passed. And House Speaker Mike Johnson, this is part of what he had to say. He was on with Sean Hannity.
85 to 90% of this bill is the House-generated product. The Senate made some modifications to it. They made it more conservative in some places and moderated it a little bit in others. But I tell you what, as the president said so well today, this is no longer just a House bill. It's not a Senate bill. It's the bill of the people.
Yeah, and the president, by the way, he was in really, really good spirits. For a number of different reasons, I think that he was touring Alligator Alcatraz. Now, this is such a great story. I've been telling you about this all week, where they have come up with this, it's like an illegal alien holding center, really is what it is. And it is out in the middle of the Florida Everglades, and it is surrounded by crocodiles and big old snakes. It is so cool. And so the guy that put it all together was Florida's Attorney General and the governor, Ron DeSantis, of course, as you know, of the state of Florida. And so Trump was asked the question, because he and DeSantis, they worked really close and really hard on this Alligator Alcatraz. And Trump was asked, you and Governor DeSantis, you've been getting along really well.
How would you describe the relationship, and what future does Governor DeSantis have?
I think it's a 10. Maybe 9-9, because there might be a couple of little wounds. So maybe it's 9. I think we have a 10. We get along good.
So the reason why I wanted to play that audio bite, even the audio isn't that great, but man, have they come a long way. Do you remember what Donald Trump used to call Ron DeSantis?
Ron DeSanctimonious. So I call him Ron DeSanctimonious. Ron DeSanctimonious.
And by the way, I hated that. I'm a big fan of Ron DeSantis, and I hated the whole Ron DeSanctimonious name because I didn't feel like he deserved it, but it did stick. Now, remember the whole controversy regarding DeSantis and allegedly wearing lifts in his shoes? Now, I don't know if that was ever actually proven that he did, but, you know, DeSantis, he's somebody who, at one time anyway, is very controversial within the Republican Party. He came out, he said that he was going to run for president. Then, of course, Trump jumped in, and ultimately DeSantis had to bow out. And yes, he did support Donald Trump. And so there's a lot of people that still say, oh, Ron DeSantis, he's a rhino and all of these other things. And I got to tell you, as a guy who is a big Ron DeSantis fan, I voted for, and I was more supportive of Donald Trump coming back for a second term. And it does turn out that that was very much the right decision. I think DeSantis is a very strong politician. I think that he is a very strong, conservative, but I just think that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, what happens in 2028 is anybody's guess. But the fact that Trump no longer calls him Ron DeSanctimonious, I think that's a pretty good start.
You know, the thing about it is, you know, I endorsed him immediately in January 2024. I raised one of his PACs millions and millions of dollars. And obviously, we saved him a lot of money in Florida because Florida was a deep red state. He didn't even have to do a rally in Florida, whereas 2016 and 20, this was like ground zero. And so we've been, really happy to do that. And then we've worked very well on this and other issues with Florida. You can call him at any time, and he wants to be helpful for governors. I mean, I can tell you that. We did Hurricane Helene last year. You didn't hear from the president at the time then. And then, but, you know, with President Trump, you know, we know immediately you just make the phone call.
All right, so there you go, Ron DeSantis. You know, it's funny, I did this topic earlier, and I don't know, man, it's like the power of suggestion. I almost called him Ron DeSanctimonious not once but twice. That's the power of Donald Trump. I think that's what it is. But I like DeSantis. But I also like J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. So I don't know. There's a lot of people that are looking at the three of them as primary contenders. They'll be running against each other during the next presidential primary for the Republicans. I still say that my money is going to be on J.D. Vance. But Donald Trump has definitely noticed. And he spoke up about it during the press conference about how well he and Ron DeSantis have been getting along.
It's been just a beautiful, beautiful partnership. So, Ron, I'd like to thank you personally. You are my friend, and you'll always be my friend. And we may have some skirmishes even in the future. I doubt it. But we'll always come back because we just we have blood that seems to match pretty well. We have a relationship that's been a very strong one for a long period of time, and I appreciate it. Very much appreciate it.
You know, that would have been the moment where some smart aleck would say, so we're going to go ahead and retire Ron DeSanctimonious? Is that what we're going to do then? By the way, I'm saying all of this in jest, but, you know, I would just remind folks that Donald Trump and Elon Musk, just a few months ago, were the best of friends. And now, of course, as we well documented last night, look what is happening now between those two. By the way, you heard Trump talk about the possible skirmish in the future. I do believe that could be the fact that Donald Trump decided to endorse Byron Donalds as Florida's next governor, as opposed to Governor DeSantis's wife, Casey, who apparently was considering a run. The power of a Donald Trump endorsement is absolutely huge. Also, by the way, and don't forget 2028. That could be, as I just mentioned, that could be that skirmish as well, because DeSantis could decide to jump in. Then you've got J.D. Vance, you've got Marco Rubio, and then you've got Ron DeSantis. Who would ultimately get that, the holy grail of endorsements, Donald Trump? I don't know. But I think Donald Trump, with that one comment that he made about how, well, we may have some skirmishes, I think Donald Trump, I think that the self-awareness of this man is off the absolute charts. I really do. But we'll have to see what happens. They by the way, nobody spoke about presidential politics as they were touring Alligator Alcatraz, which, by the way, it looks epic. I mean, it really does. They've got air conditioning. They've got, beds. They've got facilities and a whole bunch of other stuff. And for DeSantis and Trump, again, they've been working on this really hard. And I think that they're getting along very well. These are going to be the violent criminals, the illegal alien violent criminals that are going to be housed here. And part of the point of all of this is to get them out of America quickly.
We're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two, so they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended, but you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done.
One of the things that I've always liked about Ron DeSantis, man, that dude, he is competent. He really is. And again, he is a good conservative. I don't know about the lifts and issues. And I don't know if he's sanctimonious. But when he says that he is going to use Florida National Guardsmen as immigration judges, he asked for the approval. Donald Trump said, okay. Now, just so you know, these are qualified people. I mean, these are JAGs. These are folks known as the Judge Advocate Generals, and they've been around for years and years. DeSantis was a JAG himself. These are military lawyers. And so this is a great idea. When I say that DeSantis is incredibly competent, he came up with this idea, or at least he and his attorney general for the state of Florida came up with this idea. And it's a great one. And we need to do this across the country. Because what this is going to do, this is going to fast track the process. They call it a one-stop shop for immigration enforcement. I love that. A one-stop shop for immigration enforcement. The reporters, they were talking about how there's air conditioning, bathroom facilities, and from what I've seen, this Alligator Alcatraz, it looks a lot better than some of the places where these guys are from. And honestly, these guys, a lot of them should be in a maximum security prison as well. CNN, by the way, came up in the press conference. Kristi Noem was talking about the media coverage of the Alligator Alcatraz, among other places.
By thanking our ICE officers and our Border Patrol officers for what they do every day. They are out on the streets, and violence against them has increased over 500% since Trump has gone back into the White House, because he's upholding the law and because a bunch of liberals, socialists, and Marxists are out there lying about what President Trump is doing. President Trump is upholding freedom by what he is doing. The freedom to live safely in this country and to do things legally and to have justice. And because those liberals, and I'm calling out you, CNN, I'm calling you out because you lie every single day about what these operations are. We are going after murderers and rapists and traffickers and drug dealers and getting them off the streets and getting them out of this country because Joe Biden let the worst of the worst come in here.
I mean, listen, she's right. Kristi Noem is right. And we do have media coverage that is clearly biased. You see the occasional stories where they're targeting what some would call an innocent man or whatever, right? That's what the media does. But here's the thing. There's almost always more to the stories. The media, and when Trump announced that he was going to do his biggest deportation program in history, I said at the time on my local show in Nashville, I said, you just wait. The media is going to find some innocent family that is, wrongly being deported and all of this kind of stuff. And I predicted this. Well, we'll talk about what we know that has happened with the media coming up next. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE. So talking about the media and their bias when it comes to the deportations. One of the things, it's a great example where the media calls this Kilmar Abrego Garcia, remember him, the Maryland man? By the end of that story, which by the way is still ongoing, but we find out that this air quote Maryland man is a gang member, a human trafficker, allegedly, and has appeared that he's been involved in some murders as well. Some Maryland man.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.